Monday morning with Matt and Kevin. What's in the news? Topics that come up around the dinner table will be given the truth treatment with no punches held and no falsehood left standing. These two will debate real-life issues from a Catholic perspective every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern.
Thank you for the intro, Danielle. Now, let's get down to business. Sit back, relax, grab your cup of coffee, and enjoy the show. Here are your hosts, Matt and Kevin.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday morning. I'm here with Matt again. Matt's back. Matt is, well, that's not very healthy, I suppose, Matt. But he sounds pretty sick. He looks a little bit like death, but I guess it's a good thing sometimes, Matt, that we do only audio.
I'm just
no
doing
offense.
a memento mori for Advent.
You look, yeah, you look sick. You sound sick, but I'm really happy to have you here. We're doing it a little bit different now. You sent me the link. I'm here babysitting. I don't know if you've ever done babysit your own kid. I guess you can't really babysit your own.
Do you pay yourself?
But, yeah, right, exactly.
An hour
hey, good job, Kevin. Pat myself on the back. You did a really good job.
I leave yourself a good note.
Changed a poopy diaper earlier. Yeah. I'm feeding him, nuts and raisins now. He's pretty happy. So we'll see how long that lasts. Probably next,
That's what he likes to eat, nuts and raisins.
He loves that. I was actually pretty surprised. At first,
cool.
He really wanted cookies, and I'm like, okay, what can I give him that's not a cookie? So I dumped out some nuts and raisins, and dude's been chowing down.
Nice.
Still going at it, yeah.
Nice.
We'll see if that lasts, but no, yeah. So today we wanted to mix it up a little bit because, as you and I tend to do, we wait till the last minute to do anything. Sometimes we have really good topics.
Throughout
Other
the week,
times
right?
Well, like throughout the week, we're like, hey, how about this? This week we had absolutely nothing, and so I was like, okay, what can we do? And I thought, how about we just play a game of getting to know Matt and Kevin? We're going to ask each other some questions. What's your favorite pizza toppings or something like that? I don't know. I have not looked at this at all. I think Matt's looked at it a little bit more, which is also very typical for our shows. Matt has done the research, and I have done absolutely nothing. Some things don't change. But real quickly, Matt, did you see that Shohei Ohtani just signed for $70 million a year?
I did. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. That to me. So I think it was Aaron Judge or maybe Mike Trout who have the biggest contract in baseball. Like, I don't know, was it 380-ish or somewhere around there?
Something like that.
So when they were saying that Ohtani is going to be in the $500 million range, I was like, this is getting out of hand. When is it going to stop? And then when they came out yesterday or whatever day it was and announced that the deal is done, 10 years, $700 million for a guy who's really only going to DH next year. He can't pitch yet. And you don't know if his arm is even going to be able to pitch in the following year. He's going to come off a season and a half where he hasn't thrown a baseball. So it's for a DH, Kev.
He's really good. He's an incredible. He's a generational talent, but
and he's a name that will draw, and I understand that. And he's going to. But Kev, they were talking about him possibly going to the Blue Jays. Now, if I'm Ohtani, and I've got a choice between beautiful, sunny, warm, hot Southern California or Toronto, I think that's pretty obvious to me. Just me. Anyway, maybe some people like it up there. But
my question is, when is our boat coming in? When's my $700 million contract?
Yes.
I keep waiting for these big bucks coming in for this podcast, and it just hasn't happened.
The contracts
I'm
of
waiting.
Sean Hannity and all that? They're huge.
Yeah.
Or Howard Stern with Sirius XM. That's all you need, Kev. You need somebody at Sirius XM to pick. Let me see if I could pull it up real quick. I know it's let me see. I know it's really high.
Rogan was also insane amount too.
Howard Stern has a Sirius Radio, Sirius XM contract of $900 million or $130 million annually. What? So, do you think you could do that, Kev? Just 3 hours a day live? Can you do it?
That's insane. For $100 million a year, I think you can do the show.
I think you do.
Yeah,
I think you can do the show.
Come on.
If anyone out there listening has an in at Sirius XM, just let us know.
So that's my first question for you, Matt. In our game today, would you rather listen to Howard Stern or eat an entire glass jar? Not anything in the jar, but the actual glass jar.
Such a weird would you rather.
Hey,
I was going to, as soon as you said listen to Howard Stern, my immediate instinct is to say, well, I'm going to pick the second one. But then you throw eating glass.
that's a tough one. I
I
couldn't make
wouldn't.
it
I
easy
wouldn't.
for you.
So in other words, they're both deadly. They're both going to kill me.
Right. Okay.
Either
I guess
way.
that won't be. Okay. I'm going to
have
ask you a
to-
real. I'm going to ask you a really.
All right, and then I've
question.
got to bring in this the Twitter
You
war
can bring
that
in
I
the
didn't
second one.
like
I'm
with
going
the
to ask you an
voice of
actual,
Christmas.
really important question. What is your favorite type of pizza?
I like all of it. I'm actually
Oh,
pretty
come
simple.
on.
I'm actually pretty simple. I like pepperoni pizza. So in my family, the thing that's really popular is the Sicilian crust, which is like if you were to, I don't know, hold up your pinky, it's like as thick as your pinky, 1.5 inches thick. It's Sicilian, and they put no mozzarella cheese on top. It's usually just tomato sauce,
Right.
oregano, basil, little garlic, stuff like that. And it's plain. They call it plain Sicilian pizza. It's very, very good, but not always my favorite. I'm kind of outcast out of all of us. I like it thin. I like thin. I think that would be Napoletan, like out of Napoli. Nice thin
Yeah.
crust where it kind of flops over when you pick it up, like that. Which is the thing that I like about the pepperoni is it releases the oil. Like it gets all greasy and all that on it. And you could taste it in the cheese and in the dough. I like that. But speaking of you're talking about Italian stuff, I got to bring this up, Kev, because the worst thing happened on Twitter. And it's actually both friends of mine, but they started a who is the voice of Christmas Twitter bracket. And so they mentioned, I think it was 8 names of that you would recognize, old timers, and they did the thing any Italian dreads. They put so my friend here's name is JP. He put Sinatra against Dean Martin. You can't do that. And so now this actually Italians really can hold some grudges. I know people, Kev, who this is no joke. Maybe you see this over there in Europe, but they don't speak to each other because there's disagreement as to whose sauce is better, like pasta sauce. And when I mean don't speak to one another, it's honestly like you're blocked. Like I'm not speaking with you. Don't call me. Don't come over my house. We tend to take it to the extreme, but my thing with this is, and apparently I was in the minority here. My immediate instinct to that question is always Frank Sinatra. I always go back to Old Blue Eyes, the chairman of the board. I love his voice, and people were jumping on me for that. Like, oh, he lived an immoral life, X, Y, and Z. This wasn't an ethics quiz. It was about his voice. Dean Martin is a phenomenal entertainer, and he's got incredible songs. He's got a beautiful voice that aged like fine wine, as my friend Melanie posted on Twitter. But Sinatra's got a presence, I feel like that, man. So to me, I don't know, maybe if you didn't listen to them as much growing up or they weren't as big to you, but that's a huge thing. And I don't know, I always have to go with Sinatra. Was there anyone that you grew up listening to that like reminds you of maybe your
Yeah, we
grandparents or
were
some of that
more.
old style?
Oh, my mom. Oh, we listened to the old stuff, especially Christmas stuff. We
Like
listened
Bing
to only
Cosby,
old stuff. Yeah, exactly. Bing
Burl
Crosby,
Ives,
Nat
right?
King Cole, Burl Ives,
Of course.
Ella Fitzgerald. Your 1940s, 50s, 60s. I think Bing
Burl Ives
Crosby
is
was always kind of our family favorite. I don't entirely know why, because honestly,
I think he
now
won
when
the
I listen to
poll.
his music, it kind of drives me crazy because you can't sing along with it because he doesn't. He like just kind of makes stuff up as he goes. Like he doesn't sing
Really?
in time to the normal. Yeah, listen to Bing Crosby sometime. Like listen to one of his Christmas songs. Like
Gotta think about it.
I can't think of an example. I don't know. Listen to a Bing Crosby song,
You
you'll
just
see
can't
that he
sing
doesn't
along, huh?
sing it with the normal timing
Normal
of the
tone,
song. He'll just
normal
kind of
tune,
no. The tune's fine, but the timing, like he'll mess up the timing. Like he will throw in his own little thing, or he
an
won't
extra.
he won't
Mhm.
he won't go with the timing of the actual song. You'll see what I mean if you listen
I'll
to him.
play it.
That kind of drives me a little bit crazy now. But between
Well,
Sinatra and Dean Martin, I think I would also pick Sinatra.
yeah.
I think he was the more talented crooner.
Thank you. Somebody I knew somebody out there had some sense. So the thing, Burl Ives. No, the question again. The poll was the voice of Christmas. Burl Ives is the snowman from
Yeah,
Rudolph. You know that, right?
I did
I
know that.
read this is crazy. The little the little puppets that they used in the show, the little snowman, the reindeer, Rudolph, and the parents and Santa and all that. They're tiny little things. They're no bigger than your iPhone, really, if you were to like weigh them up to that. When that Christmas special was made, or I should say holiday special. It's 2023. When that holiday special was made, that was a joke. Uh, they didn't think it was going to be anything of importance or big. They threw the little dolls into a box. They like literally just tossed them away until some random guy was like, "Hey, I think these belong to my grandparents or something," and they brought them out and they took them to like one of those auction shows where some guy looks at it and gives you a worth of it, and all of a sudden they're worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars. But pretty neat story with that. Yeah.
Have a holly jolly Christmas.
Yeah, he's the snowman. He is. Oh man, I don't know. I like, yes, Bing Cosby is probably number one in all of that. But look, what would you say is your biggest fear? I'll give you a few minutes.
Fill up the dead air. Fill up the dead air.
Now we're talking about a fear, so maybe it could be.
You know, it's a good question. I mean, I'm people don't believe this, but I'm actually phlegmatic, and so my fear is typically some form of insecurity in not being safe, I suppose, if that makes sense. Not like physically safe, but like I need a security blanket or something in terms of, you know, what my future plan is or so, I suppose.
What would the Catholic answer be?
I
you
guess
can approach this in a lot of you can approach this in a lot of different ways.
Offending God. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean though? What about not feeling secure? Like what do you mean?
Yeah, I think not knowing where my next day is, you know, the next year or something. I think that's kind of a stressful. I think it's a stressful thing for a lot of people. So I think that's uncertainty. Exactly.
Right, like
I want a cozy cocoon around me where I just kind of know what's going to happen next.
I think. Do you think that has gone up the last few decades or so because we're bombarded with information, because we see so many things thrown at us and so much information is at our fingertips? I mean, I remember I was on Twitter when Bergoglio was elected, and I was thinking to myself, like, this is so wild, because I remember Benedict to the 16th, and you had to wait on TV. You had to stand in front of the TV, whereas information at your fingertips kind of put it right at you, no matter where you were in the world. You could have been out in the grocery store or whatever, and that news would have made its way to you. So I think just this like anxiety, I guess you can call it, of knowing that information is available to you, and you're doing okay without Twitter still, by the way.
Oh, it's fantastic.
You like it?
I there are sometimes I miss it, like honestly, like for podcasts and stuff, like this day exactly, like, okay, what's a good idea? I used to get so much information, but the drama and just the backbiting and the whining, and I'm so glad to be
that's
gone
just it. And when you don't like get caught up in it, and I've tried to not get caught up with it as much, there's just so much news that comes out. And again, it's one of those things where too, like, is too much news bad news? You know, am I flooding myself with all this information? But you keep up with stuff and you learn, and you learn a lot.
But yeah, the uncertainty, exactly as you say, having too many options. What is your But I think also the uncertainty of what's to come, and I think that's part of what the media tries to do, and the government and whoever, you know, they try to keep us afraid, you know, and keep us separated and keep us, you know, distracted with earthly things and earthly troubles, and you know, the banks are going to collapse today. Oh no, tomorrow. No, the next week. You know, and then that's it. So that is. I think that's probably a very common fear, I think.
What about more? What would you call it? I can't think of the word, but maybe things like heights or like loud noises or anything like that.
Yeah, I would say tight spaces.
I don't like heights.
I'm not a fan of getting stuck somewhere small,
like an MRI, when they just shove you in that tunnel.
Yeah,
and you're
that's
closed
true.
in, and you've got.
Yeah, you can breathe. Okay, breathe deeply.
Okay,
don't move. Yeah. How about you? You have a
Yeah, so
phobia?
Man, yeah. I mean, again, I could kind of spread it out, kind of like you are. You know, something that's strange, and I will bring it back to the faith a little bit. I was listening to a sermon yesterday on YouTube from one of the priests under Bishop Sanborn, and he was talking about lukewarm souls and how, you know, souls that are lukewarm, how we live the faith superficially, or we don't make it the full how can I word this, the full aspect of our life. And he told us at the end, he was like, a severe judgment awaits you. And like, to me, there's, if I look down the faith aspect, there's that fear of like, well, in what ways am I lukewarm? In what ways can I do better? In what ways am I distracted? I think um that's certainly like a fear of mine. Is my prayer focused? Am I, you know, am I willfully distracted? Am I surrounding myself with all these things that can distract me, which makes it hard to do whatever I'm doing? So that's one aspect. And another aspect, I don't like heights at all. I mean, I could do certain heights or whatever, but these people who go up, like when you go to the amusement park, Six Flags or whatever, and you sit in that little chair and it shoots
Hmm.
you 800 feet up in the air, I can't do that. That's insane to me. Even the ski, not like a
Well,
mountain,
the
but
gondolas. Yeah.
yeah, like when you're on those rides
Yeah.
and the ski lift takes you up however many feet over the mountain and you're on like a little wire, like, man, that would make me,
Right.
if it's quick, I think I could do it. But just the slow torture of like, I
Yeah.
don't
I
like it.
get
I
that.
kind of feel like, because I would be looking for like, how can I get out of this? And you
Yeah.
really can't. The only way to get out is to jump, and you're gonna jump and just crash and just like,
Well, in New Zealand, I bungee jump, so I do have kind of, you know, like I don't like being on the side of cliffs or something, but I bungee jumped and I probably would skydive,
you would.
maybe. I think I probably would. I
What
mean,
do you I wonder what it is though in somebody's brain that does this. Like, why is it that some people could just, I'm serious, like
yeah,
why is it that
true.
some people could jump out of a plane like they're waking up in the morning having a cup of coffee, and other people you couldn't even get them in the plane to get up there to start? Like, what is it in our
It's a good
wiring
question.
that allows some people to do this? And what do you remember the show Fear
I think it
Factor?
really is a different wiring. Yeah. Sorry.
You remember the show Fear Factor in the US?
Well, vaguely. Yeah, that was
Vaguely?
Joe Rogan, wasn't it?
It was, yes, he hosted
Yeah.
that in, like, '02, '03, '04, somewhere in that time
Hmm.
span. So they did a bunch of crazy stuff. Okay, what's
Wait, it's my turn.
something
My turn.
oh,
My turn. Hey,
you
geez,
asked
Matt,
me what my fear
calm
was.
down.
Alright, go ahead.
No, okay, I guess the
Go ahead.
boomerang
Go
question. I
ahead.
guess.
Go ahead.
Okay. So if you had to give up alcohol or meat
You're doing would you
for
rathers. Alright.
5 years, yeah, sorry, man, I'm breaking all the rules as we go.
Alcohol. Alcohol or meat for 5
Yeah,
years? I don't drink that
easy.
much.
Okay.
I'll have a little,
I
like,
mean,
I could have a little glass of wine or something, but it doesn't do much for me. I don't really,
fair
I
enough.
prefer, I don't like water really, but I don't really I like iced tea. I like
All right, what's your
coffee.
drink of choice? There you go. There's a question.
I like coffee. Coffee
Yeah.
or meat for 5 years? Oh, man.
Hey, there you
See,
go.
now all of a
Caffeine or
sudden I'm
meat? That's a
stuck.
good one. Yeah.
Now I'm stuck. I don't know. I had a friend years ago who tried to, she was like, you should really, what is it? Not vegetarian, um, like vegan. I
Hmm.
can't comprehend how people. I was like, all
No.
right, one day, give me some menu. I wasn't gonna do it, but I was like, just give me like some ideas of what you do, because she lived this way for like 2 or 3 years at this point, and I was like, give me some ideas of what you want me to eat. I'll try it. I'll eat. I'm not gonna be a vegan, but what's food for you? I was like, one day in, I was like, this is insane. Like, and I like my steak, and I like all the things like medium rare / rare. I don't like things
Yes.
overcooked. I like it red.
Yes.
So I'm even dying all the more. Did you know this? I'm going to throw this in there real quick. Did you know that in a brain scan, the part of a woman's brain that lights up when she eats chocolate does not happen in men, but that same part of the man's brain lights up when he eats red meat and not in women? So women and chocolate, men and red
That's
meat,
awesome.
that part of the brain activates at a certain time.
Hey,
Somebody made a joke.
Matt, tell me that comes from evolution. No, that is, God gave us certain things to make us happy. That
Right,
is,
right,
you
right.
cannot tell me that is just how things evolve. No,
Do
no,
you
siree.
are you obsessed with chocolate? We're going all off course here, but let me just
Chocolate?
throw that in there.
I love chocolate.
I like it.
I could definitely eat. But I mean, if you ask me meat or chocolate, then yeah, meat for sure. No
Oh
question.
yeah, yeah. Of course. I like chocolate too, but I mean the way some people, have obsessions with it
Yeah,
is wild. Okay, did I answer that or should I keep
you did. Go
keep
ahead. Your
going?
turn.
Okay. Um What would you there's a few here on my list here. Okay. What would you say your proudest accomplishment is?
Ooh. Well, I mean, Yeah, I mean that's pretty easy. Having married the woman that I did is a pretty incredible
I
accomplishment.
figured
Anyone
so.
who knows my wife knows that I aimed upwards and somehow managed to get a pretty good one. So that's a
Okay.
and I'd say after that, I would say that I'd say the podcast is honestly
Mm.
very close. It's very close to the top. I mean, just considering. Bastard, what are you
I
doing?
actually don't. If you want to go into it really quick, whose idea was it to start, and how did they start? I don't really know much.
Oh, it was my idea. I mean,
Oh,
so
not your
I
father.
started back
Oh, I thought your
in the
father started.
middle of 2020. So it was right in the heart of COVID, and I was just sick and tired of only hearing about COVID. So I was like, you know what, man, I'm so sick of this. I want to talk about something else. So I got my buddy. I was like, okay, and I used to so I did sports podcasts for years. So I was a sports podcaster for several years. I mean, professionally, and talked about and mostly the NFL. I worked for a site that covered the Cleveland Browns of all teams, and then the Broncos. And I was like, but eventually it's kind of like, these things, covering sports, it's nice, but it really amazed me one time. I had a really good podcast and they got a couple thousand, list clicks or whatever
Mm-hmm.
the first day. But then after the first day, you got zero. It was done. So this is like sports is something that it is the opposite of evergreen. It's dead after a day. It's like you did it and then it's done. No one will ever listen to that again or ever
It's
care
old.
ever. It's done. And that's something that really affected me. It's like, hey, let's talk about something a little more substantial. And so it started with a podcast with my buddy here in Germany talking about how to be manly. So that's anyone who wants to go back on the podcast,
Oh.
go look at the very first episode was with my buddy Rafi talking about being manly.
That's true about sports because I listen to a podcast that covers the Yankees really for baseball, and I never considered it, but that's a really good point that you made. They'll typically talk about yesterday's game or whatever, but before you know it, it's old because the next game was played, so it's completely irrelevant. It's
even football or something that's once a week. I mean, it just doesn't last. It's
dies
just
down.
You say it once, and people are like, "That was a great show." Done, gone, forever.
Sure.
Will never be viewed.
So did you when this started? Did you want it to be focused? Because did you want it to be focused on Catholicism? It wasn't like a Novus Ordo watch thing.
It's a great question. No, not at all. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but it was definitely not meant to be. For sure, it was not meant to be theology based, and
now you've got all these.
That was actually supposed to be really a very side topic, kind of like, okay, every now and then I'll get because I have several friends, good friends who are priests. I mean, my best friend is a priest, and several others who I grew up with almost, who are priests. So I figured, yeah, we'll get these topics sometimes. But my idea much more was to talk about cultural topics, more of a Joe Rogan than a Novus Ordo watch, obviously. Yeah, not obviously like Joe Rogan, but you know what I mean. That covering the topics that he covers rather than covering Mario Dirksen type topics, and it just really. And if you go look at the beginning of the podcast, if anyone wants to scroll through the videos at the beginning, it's interesting. You'll see it. There's society, culture, faith, culture, and then Bishop Sanborn happened, and then Bishop Sanborn. The interview with Bishop Sanborn about the thesis was what really changed the trajectory, I'd say, and I just made it so that the people who came to listen to the podcast were much more faith-based and theology-based, and the channel grew exponentially after that. That
video
interview
blew up. Yes, that video.
Yeah, the video was really, and it was great. I mean, he did a great job, and obviously it was because of him. It wasn't because of our channel, but that's how it works. And so from then on, it just kind of became much more of a faith-based channel, and that's just kind of how it is now.
It's interesting. Same kind of thing with Mario and Novus Ordo Watch. He does have a podcast out there. It's somewhere. I think if you Google it, you can kind of pull it up. But he didn't intend for Novus Ordo. Oh, maybe you did it at some point. I know he came on with you, and
Stephen Heiner did a more personal.
Yeah. Okay, but then you had him on too, and he kind of shared a little bit, but it was not intended to be what it was. It was like I forget the name of what he called it, like the Catholic Corner or something like that, and it was meant to be like more so apologetics, and when scandals started coming out in the Novus Ordo world, he had a little box in the corner of the website that was called Novus Ordo Watch, and that soon took over the web. So it's funny how things piece together when you don't really intend them to. So
funny how that works.
Was it your turn, or did you want me to ask?
Yeah, okay.
All right.
These are hard. I should have gotten a list beforehand. Okay. If you could live, if
Colors.
money's not an
Yeah.
option, you could live in
Okay.
one place on Earth, and mass is also available. Where would
Yeah.
you live?
Oh wow. So anywhere in the world where money is not an option. You know, there's this town, Kev, called Yakutsk, Russia, where it's like negative 120 degrees all the time.
Please tell me that's not your answer.
That's not my answer, but if I Google right now, this killed me. Temperature in, I don't know how to spell it, Yakutsk, something like that.
So people live there?
Yes.
What?
All right, it's currently negative 29 degrees Fahrenheit. So whatever that would be in Celsius, negative 34
Cold.
Celsius. It gets worse. And you can, if you Google pictures of people walking the street, it's hilarious. But okay, my actual answer. What do you think I'm going to say?
Hey, I assume you're going to say some tiny little town in Italy.
Perhaps. It's hard to, man. Oh, you know, there's. It's sad what the secular world has done, because I think of places like Spain or France that are so historically just beautifully Catholic, and how they're really just secular and awful now. But just for the food, I think I would have to go with a small town in Italy. Yeah, I think there would be some things that I would miss about the U.S. though, and I think that there are a lot of people who glamorize Europe and whatnot, and it should be glamorized. It is like it was the heart and soul of our faith. But there are a lot of beautiful things about America too that I think people don't really realize, and how much more we really are. I hate to use the word free and all that because it's thrown around there so carelessly, but we do have a lot of freedoms here that isn't really understood or seen in other parts of the world. So there are a lot of great places here, man. Like, I guess and I would, no matter where I would go, I would miss certain things of another place. That's tough. I guess just because of blood, I would have to pick a town in Italy, but I would miss a lot of things here
I get it.
in America too. You know, you must miss a lot of things about America. Colorado, right? More
Oh,
where your family's
absolutely.
from.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my family, and I mean, even the food. I mean, there's a lot of the culture, the friendliness. Even though people aren't as friendly now as they were before COVID, at least that was our experience when we came back last winter. That I felt like the strangers you met were just not as just nice as they had been. Maybe
Really?
that was just
I don't
coincidence,
know
but
if
that was what it felt like.
I don't know if I told you about this, but a job that I used to have, we had an intern who was she was 19 years old, and she came to America for the first time, and we kind of took her in and all of that. And so I remember her and I were going to get lunch one day because she didn't have a car, and I asked her, I was like, so from coming from Germany, um, what's one thing about America that has shocked you or surprised you? And she said how nice and welcoming people are.
Yeah.
She said in Germany it's not like that. Like she's like, I found out that like if I as a 19-year-old, showed up to a place that I was lost or whatever, in Germany they'd be like, so what? Like figure it out. Like you're on your own here. And she's like, here, people have run over to me and asked if I needed help or given me, money or something to eat quick. She's like, you've all been very accommodating here, and we don't have that there. And I'm sure that's a sweeping generalization. Not everybody's like that, but still it feels like that Americans are pretty hospitable, even especially if you go down south. I feel like that southern hospitality is real, and maybe you don't see that out there where people mind their own business more. I don't know, maybe in Germany. What about movies, Kev? Do you anything with movies that you can't resist?
Like a favorite movie or
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm gonna
I
get
gotta
stuck.
go.
If you ask me this question, I'm gonna get stuck, but go ahead.
Yeah, mine's easy. The Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie.
You do.
I love
I was
it.
just talking
It's
about
such a good movie, and the book is obviously better, but the movie's so good. I mean, it's hard to beat. Now I know again, everyone's saying, okay, the passion. Of course, the passion absolutely has its place, and it's beautifully done,
Yes.
and it's awful. If that's the right word, awful in a beautiful way. I mean, it really does make you reflect on your sins. So it's a genius movie, but I can't put that first just because it's certainly not one I want to watch. It's something that I watch once a year because I feel more like I have to because it reminds me of the sinner that I am. But so in a way, I suppose the passion is, but I got to get it. Lord of the Rings. What about you?
Yeah, it's like you can't put the Passion of the Christ and the Lion King up against one another.
Nah.
Like it's two different, two totally
No,
different.
exactly.
You can't.
It's a different art form in a way. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I actually really liked back then the Disney Renaissance era of like Lion King, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Mulan. I thought those movies are pretty good. Hercules. I kind of when I was a kid, I thought Aladdin. I thought they were really cool. And it's funny because the one movie that I avoided as a kid from that kind of genre there was Hunchback of Notre Dame. I thought it was boring, stupid, dumb, who cares. And now that I'm older, I'm like, this movie is genius. Like the people, it's they don't make movies like this anymore. And that underlying Catholic theme of it all too. Like it's so
I
weird
think
to
the
me
book's
how
on the Forbidden Index.
Hunchback of Notre
Just
Dame
I'm pretty sure, yeah. But I think
is it?
the book is a little more extreme than
But
the
just
movie. I
seeing
think.
like the cartoon and it's there's the Gregorian chant there at mass in it, and it's all in Latin. Uh just like this historical point of it, it's like it's beautifully done and written. So I'll have to check the book of the Forbidden Index, but who am I to judge? As Francis would
Yeah,
say.
who are you to judge? Right? But I'm pretty sure because I think that was Victor Hugo,
Oh
right? And I think
man.
well, because
I
they
don't
had
know who
some. There
wrote it.
was
I
something
just
with. I
remember.
think they had some. Yeah, even heretical type themes in it in the book. Again, yeah, the movie's obviously not the same, but it's the same with the Count of Monte Cristo. I really thought that one. Okay, it's not the same, but I really thought for sure that one was also in the Forbidden Index, and it's not. It's actually some of the romances of
Oh,
Alexander Dumas. Yeah, so it's you got to be a little
mm,
careful because they're kind of vague sometimes in what is in that list. But yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
All right. I'll have to pull that up. Have you seen Hacksaw Ridge, by the way?
that was
The
good.
war
I
movie.
only
I
saw it
really
once,
like
but
that movie.
that
Same.
was good. Yeah.
I like a lot of movies like that. I thought that was very, very good. And I don't know, like for me, I've never been one to pay attention to movies and actors and all of that. It's just not something that has pulled my attention. I have a hard time actually sitting there through like a 3 hour, 2 hour movie, but that was one that was very good. The Titanic, I don't know. I remember that from when it came out and just it was okay.
I
Um
can tell you that this is actually really funny and kind of ridiculous, but
hmm.
there are times if I'm looking for a podcast and I can't find anything that I will listen to like guys who make reviews of movies that I've never seen and never will see. But it's
Oh,
really interesting because like the reviews in my mind, I could be totally wrong about this. The reviews really kind of reflect society and movies like the movies created today and created 10 years ago, 50 years ago reflect in a lot of ways society and how the world thinks, or at least how the elites think. And that's made me kind of
that's true.
interested in not actually watching the movies, but actually listening to what's wrong with the movies being made. And I think a good example of being Disney, which is Disney's just had a terrible year. I think they've lost billions this year. And part of it is because
Rightfully so.
Disney has this message, that they're trying to get across of inclusion and transgender, all that garbage. And it's interesting because I mean, when you think about it, back in the day, yeah, if you're looking at the classic Disney's, they're typically just telling a story. You look at Cinderella and Snow White, and even farther,
Hmm,
even up into the 70s, 80s, 90s. Lion King. You watch the
hmm.
Lion King, and you don't have to like the Lion King, but there's not like you don't leave it going like, oh, this is what they're trying to tell me.
Right.
And
It's
these
just
days,
it's just the
that's what
Lion
they're
King.
doing.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
exactly. It's a movie that they're trying to tell you a story, and now they clearly are trying to push an agenda in every single movie. And I just heard that they just came out with a film called The Wish, I think, and totally tanked. And it's just because like the review that my wife was actually just reading that to me today. It's like the review just says, yeah, that, they're it's clear that they don't actually care about a story. They're just trying to push an agenda. And that's
Do you know I was reading I have two thoughts here with that. As well, one thing that I've enjoyed doing is watching older movies and almost not paying attention to the movie itself, but like putting myself so like Roman Holiday with Audrey Hepburn was from like 50, what, maybe
awesome.
58, 59 or whatever, somewhere in that
Yeah,
area,
yeah, yeah.
60 somewhere. And almost rather than pay attention to the movie, I watch the characters in it and I put myself like, what do these people as real people, not as actors, but as real people, what do they know that is going on in the world at the time?
Hmm,
If that kind of makes sense. So here's a movie
sure.
from, let's say, 1958. One of my thoughts would be like, oh, while they're filming this, Pius XII is reigning as Pope. Like, like
Yeah.
I think that way. Another kind of to loop in what you mentioned before, was there's this cartoon in America that was one of the longest running cartoons for children, the Arthur series, the animation
Hmm.
of Arthur. And people were actually talking about how it's evolved from when it came out, which was like 90, I don't know, 94, 95, to when it just recently ended, I think in 2022, 2021, somewhere in that ballpark, and how the actual episodes have changed. And more recently, they're all about teaching a lesson and including characters that might have, I don't know, some form of a disability or what have you. And that's like the main focal point of the episodes today, is to try to teach and convey and all of these things. Whereas back then, the original handful of episodes from the mid to late 90s, they were just the cartoon. They were just the show. There wasn't a lesson. There wasn't any sort of agenda. You just watched the stinking cartoon, and you just watched the show and enjoyed the show. Now everything has to have some sort of developmental
And I mean, and it's a
thing
good
about it.
thing when things have a moral or a lesson or a
Yes,
development, but only when it's made by people who are going to put in good development and good lessons and good. I
exactly,
mean, so that's the issue, is
exactly.
that when you start, and that's again when I always go back to Disney and say, hey, people, be really careful with Disney. It's simply because the point being, don't just trust it because they make cartoons. It's like, just because they're cartoons doesn't mean it's good. I mean, if you watch a movie and you say, "Hey, The Lion King," it's fine. Should my kids watch it every day? No, once a year. Yeah, come on, that's totally fine. It's innocent enough. But then, as long as you do that, don't just say, "Oh, Disney came out with a new movie. Kids, go to the theater.
Right,
It's fine." That's my
right.
problem. It's like, don't just trust it because they make cartoons. That's when you should least trust it. That's when you should be the most careful, because it's made for children. Okay, who's making it for children?
Mm.
Who? Like, tell me who they are. Do you know the director? Do you know the producer? Do you know that the words from the songs that your kids are singing? And it's a really important question that I
Yes.
think, again, that's my issue with it. It's like, hey, if you go through that and you decide it's fine, I'm not going to tell you otherwise. I'm
We
no moral authority. Just check yourself.
we did a show on this, Kev. Remember how I think we talked about Taylor Swift and a few
Yeah.
other singers, of how, these kids are just singing these songs, which are catchy, they're supposed to be catchy, and which are, have a fun tune, and they're supposed to have a fun tune, and they don't know what they're saying or what is coming out of their mouths. And I have, and over the years, I have heard very, very, very young children sing these songs that children should not be, adults shouldn't be listening to. Though, why is
Yeah.
that? Why is that impure, um, topic even entering your conscious?
Right.
And they're singing these words, and they don't know what they're even saying or talking about.
Right.
And I've actually had it where kids like age 7 or so have come up to me. They'll be playing music with their friends or whatever, and they'll ask me what something means in the song, and I'll be like, I don't want to repeat it on the show here, but like, man, I don't know if you probably wouldn't even know her, but she was very popular among kids. They were from X Factor, I think. Camila Cabello was like a very popular singer among kids, like a young Latina. And man, some of her songs contain a lot of explicit stuff, and the kids would say, like, "What does that mean?" And I would just say, "You go ask mom. You play the song at home and,
Right. Well,
and
but
ask
this is
mom."
the danger of Taylor Swift, right? I mean, people are always like, yeah, come on. Most of her lyrics are totally fine. I mean, most of her videos are totally fine. It's like, okay, I don't know.
Not
She has
more
like a
recently.
hundred, a hundred music videos or whatever. But I've seen a couple where, I mean, there is one where she is dressed up as a devil. I don't know the context. I don't need to
Isn't
know the context. If a little kid, a 7, 8 year old that's a big Taylor Swift fan, is watching Taylor Swift dressed up as a devil, that's bad, Matt. There's
isn't it
no
funny though?
subjectivity to it. That is a bad thing.
Isn't it funny though how a lot of these singers, they get progressively more evil the more famous they get?
Yeah.
If you watch that trend, I mean, I remember when I was you know, a while ago now at this point, thinking about people that were really, really famous, and the name that comes to mind for me was Rihanna. She was new on the scene, she was popular, and her music had a sweet, like, Caribbean just sound to it, and it was for the most part pretty good. But then as she grew more popular and famous and all of that, they became very dark, very sexual,
No.
very evil. And a lot of singers have done that. The industry completely corrupts them. And you listen to some of Taylor Swift's first songs where she's sitting there with her blonde hair playing the guitar,
Right.
where she is now, with some pretty dark messages in a lot of her music. It happens to them all. Like, it's very difficult to stay good and pure and virtuous in this industry. Like, I don't even know if you can anymore, in a lot of ways. But
Well, and just the, pop music, pop culture is just a dangerous thing. You got to be really careful, because even if what you're watching now or listening to now is fine, it leads almost immediately to something that's not. That's just the truth of it. And I think that's why you got to be really careful as a parent, especially. You got to be really careful with what you're letting your kids take in, because it's eventually it is on your hands. If your children lose their souls,
it's scary. Last question, Kev, before we wrap up, really quick. Sorry,
man.
No, you're okay. I think you're all right. Just really quick. Any car, if you could choose any car.
Yeah, I have honestly, I'm not a car guy. I'm just kind of like, give me something that runs and doesn't break down on me. And we got a big Toyota van, and to me, it's cool. It's good enough. I mean, when I was younger, I don't actually know why I loved Corvettes. I think it's because they had such a different look. The bump, the old Corvettes, like a bump in the front. They kind of remind me of like a Batmobile almost. Yeah. Those things were cool. Those were cool looking. But so I guess if I had to pick one to drive on the German Autobahn, I'd pick I don't know the years. 1970 or 1980 Corvette or something.
Did those lights flip up? Remember how they did, right? Yeah. Totally. That was cool.
How about you? Car?
Oh man, if I could just anything, it would be I really would love to have a Ford Raptor, the truck. Those are like $90,000 trucks, so it's never gonna happen. But they're really big, nice looking trucks, and just something that if I could. I've sat in one once, Kev. I sat in one once, and I asked the dealer, I'm like, how many of these do you sell typically? And he said he goes, I've sold about 6 in the few years that I've been here. And mostly everybody who buys them pays cash. So people who buy them tend, I guess, just be doing well on Sirius XM with their podcast.
Bunch of drug dealers. Yeah. Podcast, right?
Second week of Advent, Kev. Are we moving quickly here? All right.
Crazy. Christmas around the corner. We're just, getting things preparing for the nativity scene and Christmas. We bought the Christmas tree. Okay. Bought a Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is still sitting up outside. Obviously, it's not set up until New Year's Eve or New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve. But yeah, it's a fun season. We got a bunch of snow, and it feels this year like some years it doesn't feel like we're approaching Christmas.
Right.
I think because the weather, the atmosphere, my mood. But this year it feels good. Nice. Yeah.
I feel you.
Sweet. Well, I guess we'll see. Next week if we're feeling even more in the Christmas season. We're actually traveling. We're traveling next week to my wife's hometown, so I may be doing this podcast from the road.
Okay.
Maybe half alive, but I plan to be there. Hopefully Matt's over whatever illness he has, if it's the Rona or otherwise. But we hope you all enjoyed the show. This was definitely more of an unusual show compared to most. But we hope you all enjoyed it. And if you have any questions for us that you want us to answer, I mean, Matt didn't ask me what my favorite pizza was. That kind of hurts. So
go ahead.
You guys can ask me that. You guys can ask me that. You can ask me that in the comments. Like, no, I'm not going to tell you, Matt. No, I'm not.
All right, we got to wait.
So I'm not going to tell you.
Read the comments tomorrow afternoon.
Kate McPherson, she'll ask. She comments on like every single video we do.
Does she?
Okay. So please, comment whatever you guys have. Again, as always, let us know if you guys have any topics you want to talk about this week. I just don't always stay up with the news or what's going on. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But it really does help if someone says, "Hey, what about this? Hey, did you see this?" And actually, it's awesome. I've had a couple of those where we have talked about it on the show. So let us know. And of course, like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And we will see you guys next Monday. Matt, have a nice week. Till then, God bless you.
Make the world Catholic again.